Hey now, welcome to the Dirty Side of the Track, America's leading Formula One podcast. I'm Brian, that's Rob. You are listening because you are as excited as we are that the mid-season break is coming to an end. There's a race next week.
There is. We've got I'm going to go big on this one. I'm going to call it a barnstorming episode because not only do we have a race preview for the first time in a million years, we also have two, not one, count them, two amazing guests. Where we spent time talking about an area of F1 that we've never really spoken about before. And I really enjoyed that chat.
Me too.
So,
very much. Enjoyed it very much. Thank you to both of them. And we did the 100 seconds of DRS. It felt so good to be doing the DRS again. I loved it.
And doing it with two people, which is another first. So we got a subject, and we'll talk about this when we introduce them later, but a subject that we haven't really kind of covered before, and a double whammy DRS.
There
Try
it
and
is.
say that when you had a few
Although
beers.
Rob would not budge on the amount of seconds we were allowed. I'm like 140. He goes 100. I go 120. He goes 100. And you know what we did? We did 100.
Well, that's the name of the feature. It's kind of in there, right?
I am aware. Oh, let's stop waffling and get into the news and social before we get into our guests.
News and social, we will hit news and social, which is a little slim pickings this week, and it's very Ferrari heavy. Then Brian's gone video crazy in the video vault. We'll introduce our guests and listen to them. And then we will preview Zandvoort because we'll have cars on track again.
Yes.
So happy days.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Are you ready for maybe the most obvious story of the summer break to have come out because it's a slow news week, so we are scratching around for anything?
I mean...
Okay, ready for this?
Yes. Go for it.
We need like a big breaking news. This isn't the chopper. This is like breaking news. You don't need one of those kind of like big
like something like this.
Dramatic.
No?
Yeah, maybe. So, Ferrari team principal Frédéric Vasseur has admitted that he and Lewis Hamilton stupidly underestimated the challenge that there was Italian squad. He said, Lewis and I collectively probably underestimated the change of environment and the fact that 20 years in the same team, because for me, McLaren and Mercedes were essentially the same team, same engine, same guys, same culture, and so on. So basically, he spent 2006 to 2024, 18 years, thanks Fred for doing the math for us, in this environment, and then he arrived at Ferrari, and we stupidly expected that we'll have everything under control. Dun, dun, dun! Obvious story statement.
I mean, so I did see this too. And we talked about this at the preseason, and I actually, if you remember, I said it would take some time for Lewis to get up to speed. So in that regard, at the macro first half summer break season, I feel like I was vindicated. However, Lewis won the Chinese sprint. And
Does sprints count?
I mean, do they not? I mean, they don't count full credit, but it's partial credit. It's bonus points. I mean, it's something.
No, I guess, okay, maybe mine was more of a conceptual. Do they count as in? Do you think? So Hamilton is. I didn't get the right stat here, but Hamilton is now something. He's approaching. Is he 5 races away from equaling the record for the longest stint that a Ferrari driver has ever done before standing on the podium? So he's at 14 or 15 races, and some guy that I can't remember now, I'm going to Google this, did 19. So he's homing in on an unwanted record. So everyone's banding that around and saying, well, he's never stood on the podium. So basically no one is counting sprint races because he blatantly stood on the podium for a sprint, right? But do you think the drivers care about the sprint races?
No, but I think if you were looking for positives, if you're Team LH and you're saying, well, but he won the sprint in China, that still, it's something.
Do you want a big jar of straws to clutch out there?
I mean, it may be one of those biodegradable straws that turns into liquid, have 4 sips into your drink, but a soggy mess. But I mean, it could be worse.
I found it while you were doing your straw analogy.
Yeah, I was covering for you. I mean,
well done, thank you. So Lewis Hamilton is 14 races without a podium for Ferrari. Didier Pironi did 19 races at Ferrari without a podium, so he is just 5 races away from equaling a very unwanted record.
Didier Pironi is the longest streak before a podium?
For a Ferrari driver.
Well, I did not know that. I would have figured someone had to have gone a couple years.
Forever.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, while they haven't won the constructors for like eons or a driver's title for eons, they're always got a race competitive car that
Yeah.
usually puts somebody on the podium. So yes, okay, so that's that one. And then the other story that I found was that um, is Lewis going to now start having an influence? Are Ferrari starting to realize that they need to listen to this guy? Because another story was Hamilton's been sending documents to Ferrari detailing how he thinks the team can improve the car and their operations and their just culture generally. It's a normal thing for drivers to do within teams, but apparently is very rare at Maranello. Hamilton is doing something that not even Michael Schumacher did in terms of questioning Ferrari's way of working. They're notorious for running in a certain way and are very stubborn when it comes to changing. Apparently, I don't know who's leaked this or seen it, but Hamilton detailed 3 critical points in his documents, including what he felt about the car and the team itself. And now, with Ferrari in danger of losing second in the standings, now they may be realizing that the 40-year-old was right all along. So, again, just a bit of a nothing story, I think. They're all scrambling for news out there. So, those are the 2 big things that I saw all week. And then, go
I
on.
was just going to say, anytime you talk about Ferrari and documents, I think back to the 2007 scandal where weren't they sending Ferrari documents to McLaren? What was the situation? Yeah. So I didn't see this one until I saw it in the notes, and I'm like, Hamilton's been sending Ferrari documents. Like, no, not again.
Sending them back to Mercedes.
I think that would have made the bigger news.
And that was it. That was all I found until this morning. We're recording on Wednesday night here because we've got a bit of a road trip coming up to Chicago, not to meet Brian, just a college run. So we're recording on Wednesday. So as of Wednesday, nothing was happening. And then out of nowhere, I started getting pinged on threads at the Dirty Side account. Have you seen that Valtteri is joining Cadillac? Jim, my neighbor, sent me a text message with the same story. Valtteri signed for Cadillac. Ping left, right, and centre. People asking us, is it true? Because obviously we've got a direct line into Mr. Bottas. I mean, nearly as good as we can check with Paul, but it was everywhere, but it all just seemed to stem back to I think it's Racing 365. I might have this wrong, but a news outlet decided to break the story that Cadillac had signed their first driver for 2026, and it was Valtteri, and all of the, I don't want to call them clickbait sites, but all of the sites that aren't the major news outlets that you might go to, like BBC Sport or ESPN, none of those ran with it, but almost everything else did. Valtteri has signed. So we checked it out with Paul. We didn't get a huge, yes, he's coming on the pod to announce it to you guys exclusively soon. So it doesn't look like it's 100% confirmed yet. But is it do you think it's the where there's smoke, there's fire? Because it literally erupted today. Everyone was running that.
It did. But it was also like you say, we were able to track it to patient zero. So, when you can find a rumor back to the source, usually it's a BS rumor. So I'm not buying it just yet, but we've heard from a lot of reputable sources they're very close. So I think we have to wait until it's done. And we heard from Paul directly last year that Valtteri to Williams was close until the Carlos situation. So close is not done. And until it's done, I think we have to wait for that.
And then another one that was circulating off the side of that one was that Checo has apparently turned down the Cadillac seat. Now, this one is color me confused.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if Checo's got a way back in to F1, even if it's with a new team that might not be contending straight away, do you think he goes, nah, do you know what, I'm all right?
Nope. Do you?
No.
Not a chance.
I think unless the offer is ridiculous, like, we're not going to pay you. You just need to be happy that you're back in F1. I mean, if it was something like that, okay, I could get it. But
we're going to take all your sponsorship money, but we're going to pay you $5 million? No, dollars. And so, there's no way. There's no way. I love Checo. I always have.
I would love.
Yeah.
I would absolutely love. And I know there's youngsters that deserve seats, and we talked last week about a second championship for the young drivers, and it will come up again today in our discussion with our guests. But I would love if it was Valtteri and Checo. I would happily have those two as the lineup. And I know there's others swirling around, but I would say if those two are close, get it done, get them signed. Let's get Valtteri and Checo back on the grid next year.
Agreed. Speaking of things we want to get back to, let's get back to the video vault because the videos have been popping this week. No news, but instead we've got video action on YouTubes. So, speaking of Valtteri, and it's, we can't not do this.
This is Valtteri Bottas, and you're listening to the dirty side of the track.
Valtteri, I'm trying to do an episode. And so, Valtteri Bottas, the Ultimate Onboard Collection, Best Onboards, Qatar Airways, Formula One channel. Loved this. 22 minutes. It's long, but it's 22 minutes of the best Valtteri onboards. It's gold, Jerry. It's gold. And if you're a fan of Valtteri like we are, you should watch it. Don't ever forget, there's a quiz here in a second. Don't ever forget that Valtteri is one of the 3 members of the most podiumed trio of all time. I'll get to the other 2 in a second. Second was Spot the Mistake. And so Grill the Grid episode 3 on the Formula One channel dropped this week. This is our 3rd week of talking about the Grill the Grids. This one just came out today, as Rob said. We're recording late Wednesday before we both turn into pumpkins. And so, I really liked the face mash. I really liked the zoomed in thing. This one is Spot the Mistake, and it's a great idea. Great idea. Something's wrong. They Photoshop things in each picture, and the drivers have to figure it out. It's 25 minutes long. I mean, how many mistakes are we looking at here? There's like 12. And it's just, anyway, I enjoyed it. You'll enjoy it. You'll be halfway through. You'll be like, it's still going? Finally, I have 3 more here. F1 memes to cure your summer depression. I clicked on this from the title alone. You give me clickbait title, I give you clickbait. And so I was on the hook, and I went through to the REIC 5338 channel, which is, the
snappy channel title.
Best channel around. 9 minutes. And what this is something my children would love. It's basically like, you know how you have to click I'm not a robot and then click on the capture pictures?
Yeah.
That's this for anyone over 20. Because it's basically hopping around from like video to video with intercut random audio put in and random videos. And I thought I was actually going to have a seizure at one point from all the lights and stuff going on. I'm too old. Max Verstappen takes on F1 fans an epic quiz challenge on the Oracle Red Bull Racing Channel. 5 minutes. This gets hard. So it's Max being quizzed by Yuki. Yuki has questions handed to him, and he's asked Max questions. And they get harder as they go, according to fans who took this. There are no fans present. For the second week in 3, Max has been clickbaited himself in the title. Max Verstappen drives a NASCAR. No, he doesn't. He's asked to drive it. He walks by, says, "Nice to meet you, bloke," and he keeps going. This time, he takes on fans. No, there's not a fan in sight. It's Yuki and Max, and Yuki asks some hard questions, and they get harder and harder. One of them is, who are the 3 most prevalent podium in a trio of all time? And it was a little confusing because some of the questions are current and some were not. And Max says, "Oh, me, Lewis, and Valtteri." Correct. And so I've joked on this here podcast about all the times in the 2018 season, 19, when I would come upstairs after watching the race and my wife would go, "Let me guess, Valtteri, Max, and Lewis?" I'm like, "Yeah." And she goes, "What order?" I'm like, "I don't remember." And then finally, the last one, 2025 F1 moments you may have missed so far on the Formula One channel. 9 minutes. So good. I like it was nice and quick. They gave us a 1-hour season so far. I saw it, didn't even click on it. I'm like, I can't invest 10 minutes of an hour. I'm like, that's too long. And so this 9-minute version was phenomenal and a great way to kind of get your palate cleansed as we get ready for the second half. So I recommend that. Rob, any video comments?
No, you can close the door up.
Let's do it so we can get to our guests.
No, we only recorded earlier on today, and I can't quite remember how I introduced them. I'm assuming I did all the introductions as to who they are as part of talking to them. So shall I just shut up and then we can just play the guests?
Let's let you talk.
Box.
Okay, well, this week we've got something a little different. It's going to be a first for the dirty side of the track. We're going to try to interview 2 people at the same time with opposite points of view, maybe, as to life in and outside of F1. So welcome to the dirty side of the track, Cassandra and Ben.
Thank you. Well, pleasure to be here.
We're excited you're here. And by the way, when Rob says first time we've interviewed 2 people, we're barely capable to interview 1. So wish us luck as well.
Not even capable of interviewing one person. So,
but we're very happy you're here.
So, as a bit of background, Cassandra, we started kind of interacting on Threads, and essentially you became self-appointed personal manager of Ben and started making him guest for hire on different podcasts. So I listened to his episode on the Papaya Pod last week. So for listeners here, Ben has worked in F1 twice, once at McLaren and once at Williams, with a gap in between. And what we thought we would like to do today, and Cassandra was up for this, was let's try and take an angle on this sport that we've never done on this pod before, which is we always like to have guests on. We've been lucky enough to have a couple of drivers on. I'm not sure if Brian's got sound bites ready to press clips. No, look at him. He's not a professional.
We don't do sounds with guests. We don't do sounds with guests.
Man. Anyway, so we've had drivers on. We've had, obviously, Pit Lane Paul on with his life in the pit lane. And we're always trying to get all the stories of what it's like on the pit lane. But for all those stories, there's usually the other side of the coin, which is the people that are left at home. The families that Paul has obviously talked about many times about, hauling around the world, going to all the different racetracks. There's quite often people left at home in that. So we're going to try to look at this through both sides of the coin. So let's wind it all the way back. So Ben, when did you? We don't need to go into the full story. I'll send people over to the Papaya Pod for your punching holes in carbon fiber story, which was great.
That was great.
But what year was it where you got into McLaren?
2006.
2006.
February 2006 was when I first started. Yeah.
So what were you doing in there? Was that in the testing or kind of?
That was radio and electrical technician on the test team. Yeah.
So what kind of travel did that involve when you're in the test team?
So back then it was like full season testing. So I started with the test in Valencia, but the team were already out in Europe doing testing. They'd come from Barcelona. And back then it was like full on testing every week until the start of the first Grand Prix, which back then was normally Australia. And we would go, from one circuit to another, basically. So it would be Valencia, then we'd just pack it up and normally fly to Jerez, Barcelona, Manicourt. We went to Hockenheim, Bahrain. But every year it would be a combination of all those. And we'd also go to like aerodromes and stuff like that. There was a place called Danielson in France. There's a proving ground in Barcelona. It's quite close to Barcelona where we would just run the car up and down, and like York and Elvington and stuff like that.
Oh wow!
But it was intense.
Were you ever in the factory, or were you always on the road?
Yes. Yeah. So you were on the road, and then for that kind of end of January to kind of like the beginning of mid-March, you were on the road constantly. And then after that, the rules were that you weren't allowed to test the week of a Grand Prix, but you could test afterwards. So we would kind of do a week or two at the factory, then we would go and do another test. Sometimes those were like going to Europe, so it would be a couple of weeks in the factory, get everything re-prepared, pack the trucks and go. Other times it would be run up to Elvington in an airfield. So we'd like meet at the factory, jump in a van, drive up there in a day, just work out of a tent, do a day's running, drive back.
Nice. So then you do that for a while, did that for a few years, and then you and Cassandra get together. So Cassandra, when you meet Ben, he's already in this F1 world. What's it like, before we even worry about you guys having kids and the life that you guys have made, but even when you're just dating, what's it like? And how'd you meet him? How'd you end up meeting a guy that's on the road all the time and doing testing all over the world?
Well, actually, we became friends via social media. We were just chatting via social media, and it was actually like F1 Twitter. So we were just talking about F1, and then we just became really good friends. And sort of like over the process of time, he'd mentioned F1. By this point, he was working, when I met him, you were working on the brand center team, doing the European races with the old...
the hospitality unit.
That's the word. Yeah, when I met him, that's what he was doing. I didn't actually know that. And I remember really clearly at one point, it was Jenson Button. It was the year that Jenson Button and who was it? But they rocked up in the McLarens. It was a big thing, wasn't it?
In the factory and MTC, yeah.
And he was like, you won't believe where I am and what I'm doing. And I was like, oh, you're at work? He's like, yeah, but like what I'm doing and where I am. And then he said he was at McLaren. And because he knew it was my favourite team as well, our mutual favourite team, but I was like, yeah, right, whatever.
That's just
whatever.
the line. Yeah.
And I can't remember what it was you sent me, but I think it was Jensen had signed something.
Oh, wow.
And I literally wouldn't have it that it was real until then. And then it was after then, several days, few weeks, that little things started to fall into place. I'm like, oh, that's why he drives a Mercedes. Oh, silly things like that. Because it was
this makes it sound like you're slowly working out that Ben's Batman. It's like
sort of like that. But it was like, you work in F1, whatever. But it was real. And it just took him a while to convince me that that was the truth. And it was.
That's amazing. So you guys built this relationship met while Ben was doing this, and then obviously got together. And then
when I had some spare time, I went to your house and we watched F1 races together.
Yeah, we'd watch like Australia and things.
And we were kind of like F1 friends, and we'd go and watch races together. And then it kind of just grew organically from that.
Yeah, because it was obviously you had to drop it in there because you had the European season part, and he's going to go away to work, and he hasn't told me what he does.
Yeah, because at that point I'd moved from doing the test team because testing had been made redundant. Then I did a short spell on the race team. Then kind of it's a tragedy and everything. I got sort of taken off the race team. But that's another story. And then I was doing this audio-visual stuff on the hospitality unit. So when we had it was only European races. So midway through the season, Canada was slapped in there after Monaco at the time. So I would be away, but then I could come back and we could watch a race, and then I'd be gone again.
Yeah.
And then it was after Monza, then I could go back and watch a few more races. Yeah.
And then how long after you guys got together did you end up having kids?
Oof. It was about a year and a half, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Something like that.
Yeah. I think it was almost 2 years.
Yeah.
So then first kid comes along, and that's, I say easily dealt with. We all have kids here, and I was on the flip side of this, and so was Brian. We lived our lives out of suitcases at some points in our careers, and I remember what it was like when I had a little one, and I'd be like, yeah, I've got to go away with work again, and I would kind of pack the suitcase and be gone for 2 weeks. God bless her. My wife was fine with that, with the first one. It was manageable. For us, it was when the second one came along where it was kind of, are you going to carry on doing this type conversation was had at home. Yeah. Was that the same for you guys? Was the first one manageable and it's the kind of the second one where you guys had the conversation?
Yeah, definitely. I would completely agree with that. Although I do remember there was quite a funny incident after I had Alana, our eldest, and he went back to work, and it was Jenson Button's, after Jenson Button's dad had died, and it was the special pink for Papa. And at that point, obviously, when he would go away, we would sort of live our lives through vicariously through what would now be F1 TV, but it was Sky and Channel 4, whoever was TV cameras. If he had a break or something, he'd text me and be like, "Oh, I can do a walk past." And I'd be looking out for him. But sadly, on that particular
that is
weekend,
so cool.
Yeah, we had these cute little things. But on that weekend, they had this big thing, and they had it live on Sky at the same time when they're all arranging to have the photo done. And everyone else is standing post ready, and Ben's chatting to a girl. And obviously, as a work colleague, there's nothing in it, but considering this was his first race after I've just given birth, I have to say, that did rattle me. And then I was a bit like, oh, oh, I don't know that I like this having a family and F1 business. It doesn't seem to mix so well as it did when it was just us.
Ben.
Yeah. I'm a sociable guy. What can I say?
Well, and so go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, go on.
No, I was going to say, Rob, made a good point that, and I know we chatted a little bit about this earlier, but same for me. Like, I had one, I was on the road every week. It was really hard to like facilitate that, but it was, for me at least, manageable. Second, on the other hand, just like kind of for me, kind of tipped it over where I'm like, I don't know how much more I can do this. And so I'm kind of curious how those conversations happened, because for me, I gave up a job that was not glamorous. I wasn't on TV doing walk-bys waving to my love at home. I wasn't doing anything like that. I was sitting in a boardroom making slides, and it was really boring. So I had an easy decision. I'm assuming yours was much more difficult.
I mean, personally, for me, my father was in the Royal Navy, and he was away a lot when I was a child. And I didn't really, it was just my mum, my mum and my sister for like most of my younger childhood. My dad left the Navy when I was about 14, and that was when I kind of started having a dad, if you like, more than just weekends occasionally, because he would be away on ships, and then he was working in London, and he was staying in London and coming back for kind of weekends. And when we had Alana, it was kind of like, oh yeah, this is like the family thing's going full circle, and I'm kind of doing what my dad did, and it was kind of, I could kind of justify it, but it was still tough to like, it was like you touched on before, you pack up and you're like, I'm going away now again, and you disappear. And when they're really young, they don't understand what's happening, and you don't even know that they've understood what's happening. And that was kind of tough, but I kind of justified it. But when it was the second child, then it was kind of double tough for me, especially because a lot of the flights were either late flights or early morning flights and things like that. And so, one day you're there, and then the next day you literally just disappeared for the next 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And that was tough for me.
For me, I would say it wasn't, although I, at that point, didn't really like it. At that point, for me, it was more seeing a person who absolutely loved his job and loves the whole thing, knowing how passionate he is about racing, to literally hating going away.
Oh,
I mean, you enjoyed your job when you were there, but the process of leaving to go and then only being back for a short time started to take a real big emotional toll, and that became very obvious. So I think for me, I almost left the decision to stop to you, although we did talk about it. I didn't pile the pressure on because it was visual how unhappy he was becoming with doing something that he's so passionate about.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I didn't want to kind of, although I don't blame my father for anything. It's like some kind of tragic story of a neglected childhood, but I just didn't want to kind of repeat that process. I wanted to be there for my kids, like from the start. And that it got tough when there was two, and other small things like when you're away and you're speaking to them every day on Skype and things like that, and they see you on video, and then you're in the airport on the way back, and you've got all these presents, and you kind of think it's like some Hollywood movie. You're going to burst in the door with all these presents in your arms, and the kids will be like, "Daddy, Daddy," and they run up to you and everything. But when they're like 1 and 2, they don't recognize you when you're there at the door in real life, and they get shy and they run off and they run away, and then you have to kind of start again with the relationship, like every time you walk in the door. And because you're away, because I was away for, it wasn't like a week, it was like 3 weeks at a time, stuff like that. Yeah, that was also tough.
Yeah, that must be really hard to walk to arrive back home and your child not instantly recognize you and take that little bit of time to go, oh yeah, I know who this is.
Yeah, so the Hollywood like, daddy that you have in your head, it's not reality, and that's also tough.
That's so hard.
Little sidebar on this one. A true story that my wife always reminds me of is I am responsible for quite a bad burn on my child's abdomen, because he was getting to the age where he did thankfully recognize me when I'd come for my trips, and like you spent a fortune on presents just buying crap in airports just so I had something to come back with. he was standing up on the sofa looking out the window waiting for me to come back, and it was in the winter, and he fell down the gap between the sofa and the radiator and got stuck there against the radiator. I got blamed for this. I wasn't even in the house, but because I was coming back, I got blamed for it. And I think you have to take that on the chin as the one doing the travelling, that you're probably going to get blamed for a lot of things. And one of the ones that sticks with me is I was fortunate enough that I could always make travel work around family occasions, but I do remember being away for a birthday, and that really hit me hard for some reason. It's like, my kid doesn't even know it's his birthday. We can pull these presents out. He's going to have no idea what's going on. But I assume, by you being away for much bigger stints than I ever were, you probably had quite a lot of different kind of family occasions that unfortunately got sacrificed along the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly your point. And other small things, like we moved house during that time as well, and it was like I had to come back. It was after Monaco, and that was a back-to-back race from Barcelona, so it was, we didn't really get much sleep of any kind because we were in Barcelona, and then all of a sudden you're in Monaco, and Monaco's got us like a unique set of challenges. Then it was kind of straight home into moving house, then just throw some boxes in a house because I was only back for a week, throw some boxes in the house, say goodbye to the kids, and kind of leave again. And then I knew that I was just running away, but then Sandra had to look after the kids, but also unpack the entire house and that kind of thing, and that it's all little things like that, incremental things, and they all pile up and they all add up in the end to be like, is this what is really my priority in life? And at that time then I'd done 10 years within F1, so it was kind of like I just had to make the decision. Like, I've had 10 good years. I'm lucky that I've done it. I've done many things that not a lot of people will get to do, and I should just sort of quit while I'm ahead, if you like, and get out. So I did.
The part that is so powerful to me to hear that story is that we're all humans, but we're all focused on ourselves, right? I mean, like, it's just human nature. You worry about your problems in your life. And then we go watch something like F1, which brings so many of us so much joy, but it's not often you think about the human element behind putting on that event. And so as you describe this, Rob and I have had a debate, and I know you guys listened a little bit last week when we were talking about, what would happen with non-championship races, and we'll get to that later. But the calendar has grown in F1, and every time they announce more races, we occasionally mention the human aspect, but not nearly enough. Not nearly enough about the teams and the people who work, and even in the factories who have to support this bigger calendar. So I'm kind of curious, like, from both of your perspectives, is 24 races too many? Like, as you look at the calendars, it's grown over the years from, even in the recent years, 18 up to 24. And, is there a better number out there for the families behind F1?
For me, I would say 24 is too much for a single race team. I have thought, and I have wondered if it is now time to have 2 race teams where you literally alternate which race you do to allow that time, because it was full on for us back then, and there's more races on the calendar now.
Yeah.
And the season is longer.
Yeah.
And we just couldn't keep up with it. And the unfortunate thing is, unless they do something, it is a young person's game or a divorced person's game. It doesn't suit the family dynamic any other way, unless you make it workable for people of that late 20s through their 30s age where they are having children.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would also say that the other point is that there is no, like, once they banned in-season testing due to the cost cap rules and everything, they gave away like a second team. And even as soon as they did that, the first season after that, when they had winter testing, it was still like four tests, I think, like that, something like that season. And every team, and McLaren included, kind of turned around at the sort of end of November and like, well, we've got to go testing, four tests. Who's going to go? And you can't ask the race team to go. Well, it's hard to ask the race team to go and do all that testing when they've got to do the whole season. And,
right.
And now the calendar is March until like November.
December.
Or
Yeah,
even
early December.
approaching into December now. Yeah, like what time do you actually have off? Because you've got to go to the factory, like the mechanics. They've got to go to the factory in January, put the car together so they know how it goes together. And then they're going, and then they've got February and they're going testing and then they're going racing again. So, yeah, I think that it's way too much. And this is where your idea from your previous podcast is actually not a bad idea, because having that second team
We're going to talk about it later.
would give that relief for those mechanics, and it would be able to portion out the workload.
We don't like to let Rob know he has any ideas that make sense. So I'm just being honest with you two. I like you both a lot, but you made a mistake.
Business over it.
Even a broken clock is right twice a day. Don't worry.
But I do know in the modern, it's got era of F1, they do have like night shift teams and stuff like that. So if like a driver smashes the car up in qualifying, they've got to do an all-nighter Saturday night to get the car ready for Sunday. I know they have like an emergency team that come in and kind of do that, take over and stuff like that. McLaren had that. So there is kind of some relief, but you're still, even if you're not working all night, you're still away, and that's the main point.
Away, yeah.
You're away from your family.
So, so I do need to wind back a little tiny bit, because there's one little subject I want to dig into with you two, because we've kind of come to the end of your 10 years and you're about to leave F1, and we were going to talk about then what brought you back into it. However, you guys did a blog, and what I loved about the message Cassandra sent me was that you did a blog about, I guess you can tell us what it was in a minute, but it sounds like kind of family, both sides of the coin of like a family blogging from inside the F1 circus. And it was great because it's like small world syndrome, that you said that you had to get help from Matt Bishop in terms of what you were allowed to say and what you weren't allowed to say in this blog that you were doing. And that was kind of, we were like, well, we had Matt on the show. He's like one of the best storytellers I've ever listened to in my life. He was an absolute gent of a guy. So can you just run us through that? How did the blog come together? What was it about, and what exactly did you need to get Matt Bishop's help with?
Well, the blog was your idea, so you can start.
Okay. Well, at that point, it's obviously pre-Netflix, pre-everything. And when I was, other than Twitter, really, which was the main platform that the F1 community had. And because Ben was away, and I'd been used to him being like my F1 buddy, I needed F1 buddies. So I'm reaching out to other fans as a fan. And the minute they realised who I was, they would treat me like I'm married to a driver. And it's no word of a lie that some thought I could go with him. Some thought that I would fly on a helicopter like an F1 driver's girlfriend does or, they literally thought that was what the life was like. And I'm like, no, do behave. He goes away, leaves me for weeks, and the only thing I've got to keep me company is his blooming Mercedes. It literally was. I used to say it was literally the only good thing about him going away was being left with that beautiful car to drive.
Yeah, at the time, McLaren were a customer of Mercedes. Well, actually, it was McLaren Mercedes, so we had leased Mercedes cars that we could get as a company car.
Very cool.
Nice.
It was a nice bonus, yeah.
So it actually started really as a proper insight with correcting that. So if you ask me, before you had Netflix, we were the first.
But it was also to do with like what happens actually behind the scenes.
Yeah.
People just assume kind of some crazy things, or they don't assume anything about how all that stuff turns up every week into a paddock.
Yeah,
and what it takes to make the F1 circus run, over and over again.
Yeah, so you did that as well, didn't
so
we?
my blog was details about the logistics and stuff like that. Things that people wouldn't know happen and things like that. And then Sargis was the human
one
side.
of my favorite pictures that Pit Lane Paul has shared with us of, again, things you didn't know happened, is a picture of him sat in the back of a Pirelli truck with, I think, what looks like a highlighter, just colouring in the arrows of rotation so that it's easier when you're looking at a tyre to see which rotation way it goes on. I was like, you had to do that? He's like, yeah, look how big that truck is. Look how many of the tyres there are. I'm sat there marking the first one. I have to do that whole truck.
Yeah. So that's what it was. It was just literally because people's idea at the time of what, I think it was where Bernie kept it so secretive, which is where Matt comes in.
Yeah, that's why we had
it
to
was
ask,
so secretive. And the NDA, I remember you being told at one point that the NDA covered what I was saying as well. So we had to be really careful what we photographed and what we shared, because Bernie was not going to be happy and your job was on the line.
Yeah, back then it was FOM and Bernie Ecclestone, and he had it quite locked down with like inside access and things like that. His kind of vision for F1 was like a super exclusive kind of club.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to see inside, you had to sort of pay a lot of money to see it. So, you know, we weren't allowed to take photos of like inside the paddock, inside the garages, and even inside the pit lane and kind of things like that. So we had to go to Matt Bishop just to make sure where the boundaries were. What can I talk about? What can I photograph? How much detail can I go into? And yeah, so I didn't get into trouble basically. Wow. Because also, I mean, the implications are wider, because you know, if I start crossing the line and it comes out that I've done it and I'm with McLaren, then it kind of puts McLaren into the frame, and then it can get really messy very quickly. So I had to make sure that I was kind of playing within the goalposts, and there's no one better to ask than Matt Bishop. And we were lucky enough that he was the press officer at the time. So yeah,
he was, like Rob said, we were thrilled to have him on and have a chance to hear some of his stories. So Rob brought us back a bit to the blog, but let's go forward a little bit towards how you re-entered F1. I'd love to hear that story.
Yeah, so I left F1, and when you leave, you know, I started to get a job in London and things like that, and you know, you kind of feel like once you're out kind of thing, and it's kind of tough to get back in. But for me, like, I wasn't interested in going back. I'd left for a reason, and that we've made that clear. But time kind of goes on and things happen, and we end up moving to Sweden and living in Sweden. And then I was working for Europe's only running gigafactory for EV batteries, and everything was kind of going fine. But when you know, I've never stopped being an F1 fan. I was an F1 fan before I got the job, and I never stopped being an F1 fan. And you're watching the TV, and there are certain races, certain things, and you're like, oh, you know, I'd love to go back there and do that again. You know, that would be great to be there, and I know how that feels. Or kind of, you see some people that you know, and like, oh, you know, I wouldn't mind doing it a little bit again. But it wasn't really an option. And then at the beginning of this year, in April, unfortunately, the company that had the gigafactory, they went bankrupt.
Oh.
And I ended up getting made redundant. And luckily in Sweden, we had this kind of like, I was supported for three months with like salary and things like that. So it wasn't a huge issue to be made redundant. But I started to make some social media posts and things like that, talking about the kind of end of an era with this factory and what I was going to do and things like that. And it just so happened that one of the people that I work with at McLaren, he's now the testing coordinator at Williams, and we were good buddies when we were working together at McLaren. He messaged me and just said like, "Oh, do you fancy? How do you feel about doing radios again?" And it was sort of like, yeah, well, really? It's sort of, is this a joke question? And we kind of had a bit of a back and forth on the messenger, and then he called me and he was sort of taking me through his situation. And now it seems to me like teams are starting to gather a test team again now, and I think there might be some. That's why also the idea of having a kind of a championship race team, a non-championship race team, is kind of actually not so stupid, because now I think a lot of teams are realizing they've got to give their academy drivers, they've got to give those F2 drivers a chance in the car. The performance difference from F2 to F1 is just so massive,
right,
that they need those hours in the car if they're even going to do first practice. And so the rules are each team has got X amount of kilometers a year that they can go testing and do these events. But like, you know, to run an F1 car and to give the drivers the proper opportunity and do race simulations, you need a full team there. But they're kind of no teams like fully prepared for that. So they're kind of gathering, it feels to me, they're kind of every team's kind of gathering this kind of getting people back together. And yeah, the testing coordinator said, we need a radio guy. We haven't really got one. Do you think you could still do it? And it's like, wow. It's like literally 10 to 15 years since I did that job. But why not? I've just been made redundant. If I say no, then I'm gonna regret it. But that was a point. Yeah, I was a little bit dubious because my heart was yes, or maybe it was in my head was yes. Let's go. Let's do this again. But my heart was kind of like, well, there was a reason that I left Formula One in the first place.
So take us. So you've got the phone call, and maybe I'm conjuring up maybe a fake image here, but you've had the phone call, you've just hung up, and you're like, okay, Ben, what are we going to say to Cassandra? I really fancy doing this, but we did get out of it for a reason. So I can see a little devil and angel Ben on each shoulder here going, do it, go back in, son, go. What's that first conversation like? Or could she see it all over your face straight away and said, come on, tell me what's going on?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. I sort of knew something was going on. And I'm like, what is it? And he was like, oh, yeah, there's someone I used to work with at McLaren. There's Williams now. So like, messaged me. And it was all very kind of, well, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. Oh, no. And he was like, oh, yeah, it would be nice, but I wouldn't want to do it because of how it was before. It was really hard on you. I wouldn't want it to be like that again. And from immediately, as soon as he'd said, because at the time when it was first offered, it was only for 2 events, wasn't it? Mm. So at the time, I'm like, well, it's just 2. I think we should just do it and play it by ear because, how can you can't say no, and I can't stop you from living your dreams. And he's like, yeah, but the kids. I'm like, but they're older now. When we stopped, they were newborn and 1.5. They're 9 and 11 now. Nope. I can manage better on my own. And it was sort of like over the process of the following days, and as the calls progressed and it became a little bit clearer, then we sort of like formulated the plan that yes, and if more was offered, it would be fine, but not full-time racing. Mm. That was the cut-off point.
Yeah. And also that we could explain to the children, and children can understand now what's happening.
One of them is a racing fan,
and one of them is getting into Formula One as well. So it kind of made that a little bit easier.
Oh, so he's kicking you out, or he or she are kicking you out the door, saying, "Get out there, get me some merch."
He's kicking out the door, yeah.
Yeah, and she's not overly into watching it on telly. She actually prefers to go to circuits, not necessarily F1, but she has grown up going to watch things like British GT. And other things like what's Swedish it called now? What was Blank Pain, but it's now total.
Yeah, European GT Championships.
Yeah, World GT.
Well, you guys are obviously doing a great job raising these kids, because I should have been doing the same with mine. But that is awesome. And so I guess it's August now, and just a question answered however you like. How's it going being back in the circus at this point?
Yeah, so it's with the test team, Williams. We're running the academy drivers, and I can't lie, it's awesome. Like the first one, I was like nervous because it was something I hadn't done for such a long time, and I was kind of like, I'm older now. Am I going to be able to hack it? Is it going to be different? Can I remember everything that I did before? How different is it going to be? But as soon as I went into the garage, it was kind of like not that much has changed. Actually, the layout of the garage was the same as kind of it used to be at McLaren. The things that people were doing, it's all similar stuff. The smells, the sounds, it was all kind of like a real kind of nostalgic kind of memory for me, and that really kind of made me comfortable. Actually, it kind of was like a comfort thing. Like, okay, I can do this. And then it turns out,
sorry, Ben, to cut you, because I just wanted to ask you there. That meant you were the guy that when you were on the Papaya Pod talking about your first day in the McLaren garage and feeling like complete imposter syndrome because everybody else knew what they were doing and you were just stood there going, what on earth is going on? You were now that other guy. You were the guy that knew the smell, where everything was. So you just, no imposter syndrome this time. You just waltzed straight back in.
Yeah, it was like a bit like riding a bike. Yeah, it really was like that. And so that first one went really well, and I was like shadowing a guy who was showing me kind of the new things and everything. But a lot of stuff came back. It was kind of spooky how quickly it kind of all unlocked and was still in there somewhere in my head. The second one was then I was running all of the radio and comm systems solo, and so that was again a bit nervous at the start because it was kind of like I didn't have a safety net really that was like on track side. But again, that went well and everything, and I was able to. And then it was kind of in a way it ended up being better because I was kind of job shadowing this guy before, and we were kind of doing things his way. But then when I was on my own, I could start doing things my way and how I used to do it before, and it worked because not that much has changed. And then I really kind of slipped into really got into like the carpet, if you like, of the garage, into the grain of the wood, if you like. So that was great. And then and then I've got another one coming up in October. We're going to Bahrain, and I think it's going to be a 3-day test in Bahrain coming up. So now I'm just really looking forward to it, and it feels like I'm kind of not the imposter, or not even kind of, I can't explain it. I'm just back in the groove, basically, is probably the best way to say it. Yeah. So I'm loving it.
On your side, Cassandra, from what I can see anyway from threads, is that you're leaning into this even more than ever before in terms of just a blog. It now looks like you're a bona fide travel agent setting up rivaling F1 experiences for sending people to races.
Yeah. Well, a little tiny sub story for that is obviously because where we live is in Swedish Lapland, and so for the last few years I had been getting into travel and helping other Brits move here and holiday in Lapland, so I already had the qualification. So then it was like, well, why am I not selling F1, which funnily enough coincidentally coincided with him going back, because just before that offer had happened, when he was first made redundant, we'd actually banded around the idea of bringing back the blog, because I'd spoken to a couple of travel agent friends and a couple of other people who are into F1, and I was like, well, what would anyone want to know what it used to be like 10 years ago? And everyone said yes. And I was like, well, it's different now. You've got Netflix, you've got the movie,
right?
You've got a bigger fan base. Let's do it. Let's do it all. Let's just go for it. And then, so if he'd have said, no, I didn't want to go, I think I probably would have, thrown him out the door with his bags and kicked him into the plane and said, no, you're going.
That's awesome. So is there a URL or a website, or a place people could go check this out?
Website at the moment.
Yeah. We're building the website at the moment, but basically the best way, I actually use my old blog name. So the easiest way to find me now for F1 races is to Instagram, Life in the Pit Lane, or LITP Travel, or Motorsport Travel, LITP Motorsport Travel on Instagram. Either one of those two will get to me. Awesome. But yeah, lifeinthepitlane.com is back. And it will be, it is
in progress.
Yeah. It's there. We just need to start adding the content back in, and then adding new content, as well as traveling to the races. And it's not just the races, obviously, because we know and have insight. It's much more than that. It's more of a personal service of, where around those circuits, where's good to go, even the hotels, where they've been, where they stay, all those little sort of like extra insights that you couldn't have from anybody else who could sell you an F1 trip.
There you go. Sold. Me and Brian are all aboard.
Love it. So can I shift gears a bit? We referenced it, but last week, Rob and I got into a bit of a debate around non-championship races and the idea, bring them back, don't bring them back. You got a big calendar, you got a cost cap, you got people who got jobs to do, but you also have opportunity where drivers and the junior drivers and the just even more testing and gathering more data. And we did struggle, Rob and I, on the idea that said, well, what do you do about the team? You already have them overstretched, overtaxed, 24 races and testing before the season. That's too much. And Rob said second team. And you guys, when we were chatting, both kind of thought second team, and we referenced it briefly. So do you think, and I hate to say this, that Rob may have had some, Rob may have had some positive argument going there that, there's something that teams could explore?
Yeah, I'm all over that idea. Absolutely.
But I think you'd have to reduce the number of actual races, of championship races. You'd have to reduce them down. I don't know by how many, but you'd probably have to knock off at least 5, I think, maybe something like that. Maybe more.
But if you're having non-championship races, they step in and be part of the non-championship part, the 5 that you knock off.
Yeah, but from the family perspective, part of the point would be to give the race team more time at home, more time with their families, more relief from being in a hotel or in a pit lane.
Alternating,
yeah. But at the same time, you're giving them that relief, but at the same time, you are giving those academy drivers the opportunities to drive the car. You are promoting opportunities to test and develop parts and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, the biggest problem, like you said last week, is money, because you're going to get back to basically having 2 teams. And like, it's nice to say that, but when you think about it logistically, you're talking about building 4 chassis, maybe even 6, because if one gets crashed and things like that.
Yeah.
And you're talking about all the parts that go with that to be built at the factory, to be scheduled, to be built on time. It's a huge operation to do that. Trucks, motorhomes, chefs, hospitality people, all the garage equipment, times 4, because you've got to have a spare. You've got to have what you have. You've got to have a spare. So you've got to have kind of times 4. Fabrication shops increase. It's a lot of extra work. So behind the scenes.
Think about all the extra blue tires that need to get shipped around the world and never used.
Exactly. But from that point of view, though, it is a good idea, because, like we said, I was talking to one of the Williams Academy drivers, and he was telling me that the performance difference is like being in a Nissan Micra, being in an F2 car, and jumping into a Lamborghini. That's how the Golf is that big. And in fact, he said the performance gains from the junior formulas to Formula 2 is less than the gap between Formula 2 and F1.
Right.
It's kind of like you've been spending all your junior career driving these cars incrementally, getting faster and faster and more grip and more downforce. And then you get into an F1 car and it's like you're in another galaxy and you're going into another dimension. And so I think it is important that if we're going to have quality on the grid for races, that you need to nurture these academy drivers and give them opportunities and give them experience in the car. And that sort of seems to be where it's going, because the regulations are changing next year with the car that they're allowed to test with. Is allowed to be newer. I think there's more mileage being offered, which is creating almost literally is creating a second team, because they've got everything on the test team at Williams that they have in the race team, minus a few specialist equipment in the pit lane and stuff like that.
And my other thought as well, that I know I kind of mentioned it last week, but because I was thinking about like racetracks that aren't used at the moment, like Estoril and places like that could get brought back again. But even the ones that are going into rotation at the moment wouldn't then therefore need to almost go into. You could almost rotate. You could have something like Spa on the calendar every year, but one year it's championship, one year it's non-championship, and then at least the venue has got some sort of consistency there that they don't. I was reading the stats for. Oh, was it Zandvoort that almost doesn't make any profit, even though they put on an F1 weekend or something? Because it's.
I mean, that's why they're leaving after next year, right?
I think it is, isn't it? It's why they're going, because it's not they're getting kicked out of it. It's just they just can't make it make sense. Mm-hmm. Now, unfortunately, arguing against myself here, would a non-championship race draw in the same number of crowds as an F1 race? Probably not. They probably make even less money on one of those. So unfortunately, everything comes back to money, as it always does.
Yes.
No, I think it could generate quite a bit of interest. Because it's seeing a Formula One car, isn't it? Like, when do you get to see the F1 car?
Yeah,
But you couldn't charge as much, though, could you, for the tickets?
You couldn't charge as much, no, but it's... Yeah.
Well, it all comes down to if F1 as a product is going to ask for less money from these places to do these things. But will they, won't they?
If they were clever with it, they could launch it as an F1 Lite, and they wouldn't need to charge the tracks as much money. They wouldn't need to charge as much entry fee. All of it would be extra money slushing into them they don't get now. But you know,
they're getting all this for free off of us. Like, what do they need to pay for?
Well, I mean, I know Toto listens to this podcast. He's probably out sending these messages to Susie and getting it implemented straight away. So, but talking of things we need to implement, talking of things we need to implement straight away, we need to get you to run the world famous 100 seconds of DRS. Not that we like to name drop, but you know, Valtteri did it, so if Valtteri can do it, anyone can do it. It's going to be Brian asking the questions. He said, should we give you more time because the two of you? I'm like, no, it's the spirit of motor racing. It's 100 seconds of DRS, so it's up to you guys to answer quickly. It's also up to Brian to ask the questions quickly.
Which will be a challenge.
So I'm going to start the clock. I'm going to count you guys in. You'll have 100 seconds. Brian's going to ask you their easy, like yes, no, up, down, left, right type questions. There's no kind of rocket science in here. We'll have you, Cassandra, answer first, ladies first, and then Ben, you can throw your answer in, then boom, Brian straight onto the next one. And we'll take it from there. So are you guys ready to run the 100 seconds of DRS?
Oh, yes. Bring it on.
But by the way, when this gets played back and you hear it, there'll be some amazing music playing under this. So you have to pretend you can hear it because Brian can't work out how to play it at the same time. So
that's accurate. That is, I'm the sound guy and I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay, Brian, are you ready to ask the questions?
Yes, sir.
Okay, 100 seconds of DRS starting in 3, 2, 1, begin.
Favorite F1 track?
Spa.
First poster you had on your bedroom wall?
Oh, Ross.
Street Hawk.
Oh, yes.
Best racing movie of all time?
Rush.
Grand Prix.
Oh. Is it pronounced GIF or GIF?
GIF.
Thank you. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No.
Thank you for that, too. Favorite livery all time on an F1 car?
Golf.
Golf.
It's got to be the Golf livery.
That's a good one.
Oh, that's so tough. Let's go Jordan 7-Up.
Yes, 7-Up. Very good. Favorite non-motorsport sport?
Gymnastics.
Ice hockey.
Sleep in or up early?
Oh, sleep in.
Best F1 driver of all time?
Mika Hakkinen. Well, that's just my love, rather than necessarily statistically the best.
Jim Clark.
Batman or Superman?
Superman.
Batman.
Wet or dry race?
Wet.
Oh, dry.
DRS, good or bad?
Bad.
Yeah, bad.
Tires, interesting or not interesting?
Interesting.
Yeah, interesting. Especially with dual manufacturers.
What is your favorite food?
It's a British roast dinner.
Curry.
And that is time, but British roast dinner. Do you know what? The one thing that I yearn for that they just don't do it right in the States. And whenever we go back to see the family in the UK, it's either two things that have to happen: a Sunday roast and Friday night down the chippy. It's
Oh.
I have to say, like, I'm learning obviously more of the British culture. And when I was in London, I found a place that had a nice English breakfast, and I sent Rob a picture, and he said I was doing it right. So that was, I had to walk pretty far because on the map I wanted to find anyway, whatever. It was great though.
He found a proper greasy spoon in London and got a full English. It was, yeah.
Oh, he did do it proper. Wow.
He did.
It was awesome.
Did you get bubble and squeak?
I don't know what that is. Bubble and squeak?
No, he didn't. I think in fact, I'd give him a 9 out of 10 for the full English because I'm not sure there was any black pudding on there.
There was no blood sausage black pudding. No, there wasn't. They didn't have it there, but I asked for fry bread, and at least I got that. That wasn't originally on it, and so I had to ask for parts to make it happen. But I was going to skip the black sausage, the blood pudding.
My second test was in Silverstone, and I had a Friday night chippy when I went back.
He's making me dribble. He's like video calling me.
So
going, my fish and chips.
So there's no chippies in Sweden either, then.
No.
Oh. We keep saying that we should open one because everyone over here seems to say that every time they go to the UK they love fish and chips. I'm like, I'm just gonna have to open a chippy then. That's what it's gonna have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here.
Anyway, we are going to be caught out by time here soon. So, just before we let you go, could we ask you both, what's your favourite thing about being involved in F1? So whether it's, Cassandra, your view of kind of what you're doing now, favourite memory, favourite whatever, Ben from the things you've seen or done, just each of you, what's your kind of favourite memory of F1 before we wrap this up?
Oh, for me, I think the only thing I can say is it's the pride. I love the sport and I am so proud to be, not just that he's my husband, but the fact that that's the work he's been doing. He's involved in the sport that I love. It's like awesome. And the fact that he's living his dreams. Whoever gets to live their dream once, let alone twice.
That's phenomenal.
That's awesome.
You're going to have to do something pretty special now, Ben, to beat that.
Roses and chocolates are not going to cut it.
I mean, what do I love about being... I mean, it's just being part of something that is like... I mean, it sort of sounds cheesy, but I'm never going to be like Usain Bolt. I'm never going to be Neymar or somewhere like that, But being able to participate in some way in a sport, I think is I'm quite proud of that. It's quite an honour, even in a small way, to be part of that kind of cog.
Well,
and especially when I was at McLaren,
winning
championships and things like that. It was a good feeling. Yeah, proud.
That's amazing.
Oh, you might win a championship with Williams. Come on.
Yeah, fingers
it's
crossed.
Coming. Yeah, it's coming. Yeah.
Can't wait for next year's race. You got the drivers. Guys, Ben, you mentioned honor. It's been an honor having you both on. Thank you so much, Cassandra, for making sure that we could do this, and Ben for joining her with us. This has been awesome, you two. We really appreciate both you taking the time to do this and showing us the family part of F1.
Yeah, it's a topic that's just not covered enough and talked about enough. Everybody knows it's there, but few want to actually bring it out to the forefront. And we should talk about it because that's how we make it better for everybody who works in F1.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us.
Thanks, guys.
It's been fun.
It's been great, yeah.
Box.
That was awesome. Thank you so much to Ben and Cassandra. That was a great conversation, and like we talked about, obviously, it was nice to think about sort of the people behind the circus that arrives at every race every week and the families that support it. So that was awesome. Thank you both again so much.
It made me think of, do you remember towards the end, I don't know what season it was, when Paul kind of got into a little bit of a dark spot when it was getting towards the end of the season and he hadn't been home for a million years, and he recorded like one pit lane Paul report, and it was just...
The Discord folks, which, by the way, join us on the Discord. The Discord crew remembers that one. They talk about the time Paul was all upset. They noticed it.
Yeah, I mean, it just must grind you down when you're just away for that long. So, no, really enjoyed that chat. That was absolutely fantastic. So, yeah, thanks again to, like Brian said, to both of you for coming on. So, okay, what that means then is that we are about to do a race preview.
Yes,
it's going to be race week next week.
I can't tell what's worse is the off season, because it's the off season, and then you kind of have testing and Drive to Survive and liveries,
and car reveals,
livery reveals, and you're like, all right, it's about time. But the mid-season break gets me every year, and like you said last week, we had a 3-week break, and now we have a 4-week break with like almost back to back. This has been harder than usual. Yes. Question?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yes, definitely. We are checking. Anyway, we have a race preview. We have Zandvoort coming up. So let's do our cursory review of the track and the race. So Zandvoort, although, right, okay, I think I said this last year when we previewed it. So it said it was on the calendar from 1950 to 1985, and then it came back in 2021. I was only 10, so in 1985, so I'd never even heard of this race before.
Me either.
For me, it appeared in 2021 and it had never been on the calendar ever before. So
It's sort of the same as we've talked about. My early F1 fandom was watching a Sunday night recap show where they would go around occasionally to F1 races. I don't remember them being in the Netherlands.
no, so it was, really by doing this pod that we kind of sort of looked back into it. So it's in the north of the Netherlands on the North Sea coastline. There is lots of sand. I'm presuming the name must mean Zandvoort in
I think we
Dutch.
did this. It does. Right? I think that's right. And if it's not,
it's got it. If it's not, that's what it is now.
Exactly.
1950 and 1951, Brian, were non-championship races.
You don't say. I actually know a lot about those things now.
Last year when we did this, we were like, one of those. So I'm glad we've laid that to rest. It's been through a lot of layout changes. 71 saw the last race of the old layout. Jackie Ickx won in his Ferrari. 72 was on the calendar, but the drivers refused to race due to the conditions on the track not being in keeping with other venues of the era. We had Hunt and Lauda dominated the 70s. An American by the name of Mario Andretti won in 78. Alan Jones of Australia won after that, and Piquet of Brazil. So 4 races in a row for 4 different nationalities. So, and then we had 4 in a row, all from France. 81 to 84 was Prost Peroni. Oh, we've already mentioned him today. Arnoux and Prost again. So,
do you know that in 1983, that was the last season of non-championship races?
Was it really?
Yeah, it was at
I wish I
Brands
knew
Hatch.
more about
It was a race of
those.
champions, but
Wow.
yeah, Danny Sullivan finished second. He had Low Curry the night before.
1985 was the race. It was the final running of it. The company that ran the circuit went out of business, and the track that was owned by the municipality of Zandvoort just wasn't used. And basically, half the grounds were sold, and it all fell into disrepair. And then it was going to be a bungalow park, and it was all done and dusted. Then essentially, there was some redevelopment went on in the 80s, but what really kind of changed it around was up in 2019. Lots of different formats had appeared, but Max Verstappen drove in the Jumbo Racendagen. Nailed that one. From 2017 through to 2019, which was just some sort of basically event that was done. But it caught the F1 boss's eyes because the number of people that flocked to watch this because Max was there. When he said that he needed to go to the Nürburgring under a fake name because of they might get overcrowded with the venue, he's talking from experience. He wasn't even the name back then that he is now. And when he went along to this one, they knew he was going. 100,000 Dutch fans turned up to watch him in this random event, which wasn't even a proper race. He just turned up and did a couple of donuts, I think. But...
I mean, the interesting part is, to your point, it wasn't a race, like a proper race. It wasn't an F1 race. So you didn't have people from all over the world flying in for the Dutch Grand Prix. You had the Jumbo Racedagen driven by Max Verstappen, and everyone in like all of Holland is like, oh, we got to go. And so they were there. And I love it. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Which is the bummer is it came back in 21 officially. It was going to be 20, but then, COVID came back in 21, but it's leaving after next year because of financial reasons. So you have passionate fans. You have by far a generational talent driver, the current 4-time reigning world champion from that country. And we're going to take the race away after next season because of financial reasons, effectively. That sucks. I mean, I feel bad for the Dutch fans.
Yeah, honestly, I really do. Because we both like this track. We've got 2.646 miles in length, 14 corners, which means we'll have 72 laps of this bad boy. And, we both do, but I know you really love turn 3, the banked lefty, right?
Right, when I made the mistake last week on the questions from Mercedes, and I thought that Checo won the regular Bahrain, but it was the short, my mistake, because in 20, obviously there was a crash. I would have
noticed if you hadn't brought it up.
Romain Grosjean, it's okay. I got a little confused over here. My point is, I thought about best corners because you asked that question, and this was one of the options. As I went through quickly in my brain, my terribly addled, low-powered hybrid brain, I said, what is the best corner? And one of my favorites is definitely turn 3, that inside carousel banked lefty. And the reason is you can kind of go too wide through that corner safely. You can also take wildly different angles through that corner. And I always feel like every year Fernando Alonso finds some point, either during quali or the race, where he's like, well, I'm going to start this really wide and then cut way through the apex and then come, or I'm going to start really inside and then just let myself roll out of it. I mean, he always tries
when
something
he does
new.
that.
Yeah.
When he does the inside and goes all the way out, what are those things called where the motorbike goes? Is it the wall of death where you see the motorbike kind of go to the inside and get all the way up to the top? It kind of reminds me of that because it's like, oh my God, he's going to go flying off the top of the circuit if he keeps going.
And I know Danny Rick broke his wrist trying to avoid Liam, and a lot happens in that corner. But for me, anytime there's no single prescribed approach to a corner and other approaches can work and people try it out, sign me up every single time. Yeah. This is that.
Yeah, 100%. So last year was, I guess last year was heralding in the new order. So in qualifying, we had Lando from Max from Oscar. It was pretty kind of almost straightforward quali, but the big news was that we've got to be getting towards the end of Logan's stint here. I can't remember where he got swapped out, but Logan didn't take part in quali because he had a huge smash in FP3, and he had to actually get the steward's permission to even race because one of those little known rules that a lot of people don't know about that still technically exists, but I'm not sure they've ever turned anybody down for it, is back in the day and still now, you should qualify. Even if you qualify last, you're supposed to qualify within, I think it's 107% of the pole time.
Correct.
So if you're basically really slow at the back, pootling around, and you don't make your time within 107%, the stewards can turn around and say, you're too slow, you're not allowed to race. I don't think that's been enforced for ever.
I think it had been years ago when they implemented it because you had people rocking up, like the prince of some place in a car that didn't make sense. And he's like, oh, I'll do fine. And, you didn't. But yeah, you're right. It's been, I don't think I've ever heard of it in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Used.
Yeah. So we had the race. Max jumped Lando at the start. I think this was when Lando was going through his little phase of, I'm going to get pole and then I'm going to give it away at the first corner.
Which was called all of 24.
Ooh, you're going to get the Lando fans on your hair, Brian. I don't agree with Brian. Lando's great. So
I love Lando.
So it looked like normal order was going to be restored because I think since it had come back on the calendar, Max had basically won and dominated every single one of his home Grand Prix. So Max jumps ahead, off he goes into the distance a little bit. And so, okay, maybe McLaren hasn't turned the corner we all thought it was, because this was the point of the season where we were trying to count down the races and see if Lando could reel Max back in the championship. 16 laps later, Lando completely reels Max in, so much so that when he overtakes him at lap 16, he then goes on to win the race by over 20 seconds. So if you want a statement win in Max's own backyard, then this was it. This was the one to basically say, how'd you like them apples?
Is this the race? I'm pretty sure it is, where Lando wins and he gets on the team radio and they said, congratulations, how was the drive? And he said, simply lovely, which is Max's catchphrase. Isn't this where that happened? I'm pretty sure. And Lollipop Man did a whole thing about them flipping the I'm really bored leading by so much script. I'm fairly certain it was Zandvoort last year. So I'm looking forward to seeing Max in front of his home crowd, the adoring fans in orange, and Lando and Oscar in the papaya rocket ship, which is a similar shade of orange, and kind of seeing which orange army prevails.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can get a little bit of a repeat for a Ferrari performance here because Lando won it 20 seconds over Max, and it wasn't Oscar that came home in third. Oscar had tried to do something funky with his first stint and extend it, and it didn't work out. And that allowed Chuck Leclerc, to go from sixth to third and put it on the podium. So I'm kind of hopeful. I'd really like it to be Lewis, and we won't be talking about that record of the longest stint without a podium, but my heart of hearts knows that the Ferrari doesn't look brilliant at the moment.
No.
So,
And I bet on Lewis making the podium just before break. I don't think it was right before break at Hungary. I think it may have been Spa. I can't remember which. Silverstone. I had Lewis making the podium somewhere, and I regretted it the moment after I made that prediction. So
Well, we didn't bust your chops for it too much.
I appreciate that.
But yeah, well, we did. Anyway, repeat winners here. Jim Clark leads the way with 4. Jackie Stewart, Niki Lauda, and Max Verstappen have 3. Ascari, Brabham, Hunt, and Prost have 2 championship wins, and Louis Rosier has 2 non-championship wins, because we know what those races are now, Brian.
50 and 51.
Apparently so. From a constructor perspective, we have Ferrari on 8, Lotus. I know I've said this before, but I love it when we get a constructor of yesteryear that's still up there. So Lotus on 6, McLaren on 4, Red Bull on 3, BRM, Metra, and Brabham on 2, and Talbot Lago on 2 non-championship wins, Brian.
You're making that up.
Now.
Rosier drove for them, apparently.
I'm probably sure that those are the 2 wins. Yeah. So we'll get back to doing our midweek predictions. But while these aren't official predictions, Brian, I'm going to say that McLaren are most likely to jump up onto 5 constructor wins there. I'm not quite sure which one of those papaya boys is going to do it, but I do get the feeling that unless something goes hideously wrong with those 2 cars, that it'll be those 2 fighting it out for the win. That's my gut feel.
So I mean, you're stating the obvious. I actually would take it to the next level and say it is a shorter track. There are slower speed corners. Maybe this is where McLaren, once again, isn't as strong as they have been at some tracks. Is there a chance for a little...
Just an incident.
Charles Leclerc, Ferrari, Lewis Hamilton, Mercedes, George Russell, and, Max F. Verstappen situation? I think there could be. I'm going to go with...
20 seconds clear last year.
Yeah, but it's different this year.
And the defense rests, Your Honor.
Yeah, Your Honor. No objections needed.
So, yeah, I can't wait. We're going to have drivers on tracks. We're going to have podium predictions midweek. We're going to have practice. We're going to have quali. We're going to have race. And I always think a race coming out of... Right, there's 2 races in the season, right, that get free hits. First race of the season, first one out of summer breaks. They can be the most boring dud fests, and we will probably talk about it way more excitable than the race actually was. So even if this one, which I don't think it will be, because Zandvoort isn't usually a dud. Oh no, it was one year.
I remember
calling it Zandbor on the episode title once. But even if it is a bit boring, we'll still just be so happy to see the cars back on track that we give it a little bit of a free hit.
We also had that crazy rain year where Checo put on the wets and actually drove on them, and we were like, whoa, the blue tires are being used, the full wets?
Yeah.
You never know what could happen. It's right by the sea. There's a lot of sand. The Dutch are big fans of gardening, and so we shall see what ends up happening. And on that, Rob, anything else you want to talk about before we close this bad boy out?
No, nothing. I need to go and get some shut-eye now before driving 60 million years to Chicago. Oh, and by the way, we are going to... I mean, it's not going to happen, but potentially me and Brian will see each other at some point over the next couple of days. He's driving my direction 15 hours to drop his kid off at college. I'm driving the opposite way. So there is technically a chance that the Dirty Side have a meetup just on opposite sides of the highway.
And we'll both be going 160 miles in the opposite directions, 80 each, as we pass each other. Regardless.
I'll keep an eye out for you and try and wave, Brian, and then... Yeah,
you spend your time watching for me. Everybody, thanks so much for listening this week. Thanks to Ben and Cassandra. That was great. And yes, in 1 week's time, we will recap the Dutch Grand Prix. Be well, everyone.